Hello and welcome! The PlayStation Vita has been my favorite portable system since I first got it in the first edition bundle back in February of 2012. My PlayStation Vita has seen some pretty rough times over the years, but no worse than, well, when I actually started modding. You see, I really am not a fan of the PlayStation Vita memory cards and have wanted to go and upgrade to 128 gigabytes via micro SD card and an SD to Vita, at least for some time. Unfortunately, before I got this black SD to Vita, I had a white one that was a bit defective. Either that or it broke it. Can't remember which one specifically, but when I got it and I, well, one day when I put it into the card slot, the card got stuck. And, well, even now I can't put cards into the system, without it getting... Yeah, there's no way getting these things out. But that's why I got a Vita 2000. This has been my go-to system for a while, but it's a bit sad to see because there's nothing wrong with this Vita. Absolutely nothing. So why am I limiting my Vita to, well, this? So I went ahead and got myself this. This is another SD to Vita, I believe an older model, and my goal today is to hard solder the pins on this to the card slot in this PlayStation Vita system. I'm going to be tearing it down, soldering it in, and seeing if I can fix my Vita. It also means the system will never be stock again, and good chance I probably will never want to sell it, but it's always nice to, well, get this old girl up and running again with storage that I actually wouldn't mind. So, let's get started. I begin by testing to see if the system works and seeing if there's anything obviously broken. If I'm going in this thing anyways, might as well fix what's already broken. Afterwards, you need to take off the 4 screws on the top and the bottom, which I'm doing now. And once you're done that, you have to take the 4 screws from the sides. Now you got to be very careful when you actually start disassembling the rear panel because 1, the memory stick actually holds it in place, and 2, the rear touchpad and the battery is actually a part of that chassis. So you got to be very careful when unplugging since the pins are there. Afterwards, take out the color screws and make sure you keep track of where everything is going, and be very careful with the ribbon cables. The main motherboard that I'm taking out today is the big blue one in the center. That's all I need to actually take out. Everything can stay in. The only thing that's left is to take out that hidden screw behind the camera, and the board pretty much slips out. You gotta be very careful too, because the front camera and the screen ribbon cable is underneath the display, and they are fragile. And after those two are free, you can take the Vita, main board of the Vita out. You can kind of see here the damage that I've already done to the card reader, and the idea that I had going in was to start soldering the pins and potentially even not soldering a few of them and just reusing the good pins that are still there. Why solder when you don't need to? But this is when I actually started getting into a bit of trouble. I thought I had the skill to solder more than I actually did, but as you can kind of see here, it's already flubbing up and I put too much solder on and I wasn't able to clean it up. Let me just let myself explain what happened. And after about 20 minutes of soldering, this is what I am left with. A completely broken and destroyed SD card adapter because I couldn't figure out how to solder right. But I didn't do anything with the Vita. I worked exclusively on the card adapter and it just turned out like that. So I'm going to go and attempt to rebuild my Vita put everything back together and see if it can work. It's a bummer that this didn't work out, but you know what? If the Vita works, then I learned something. Now, when reassembling the Vita, you have to be very careful. When you're doing I know it's not shown, but with the motherboard, you have to be very careful, and you have to sort of angle it right in order to connect the camera assembly and the front screen back into the right ribbon slots. Do the camera first, then angle the motherboard, then do the screen. They kind of snap everything into place. Once done, put the motherboard in. The ribbon cables take a lot more force than they should. That's why I had a pair of pliers to help me just slot these things in, just to get a better hold of them. So once you get the ribbon cables in and you're at the point where I am and starting to screw things back together, it's relatively simple. The Vita assembly is the hard part of the Vita assembly is the ribbon cables and the zero insertion force connectors. A good point that I'm showing here is to not screw in the cover panel when you're done. By screwing in the cover panel, you leave yourself a lot more time if you miss something like I did. But since I didn't and everything is snapped together, it's time to actually test to see if I assemble this thing correctly. I do like putting the correct day and time in. Now, to test the Vita, since there's so many bells and whistles on it, you want to go to Welcome Park, since it does go over everything from the front touchpad to multi-touch to dragging, as well as the rear touchpad. And that's the biggest thing that it's hard to test for. Now I'm going to be testing the cameras, which I am testing there. And then finally testing the 6-axis gyro controls. You can test the buttons on the main screen. It really doesn't take a lot. So that didn't go as expected, but that's the way when you're trying new things or you're, experimenting. Sure, it might not have worked this time, but this time when I went in, I paid a little more attention to what I was doing, and on paper, it's possible, but looking at the amount of work, I don't think I'm going to attempt something like this again. On paper, it's possible, but but my soldering skills just aren't there yet, and for all intent and purpose, the skill I feel that's required to do something like this is a little greater than myself. Maybe one of these days I can try this, but I'm going to be honest. If I had a choice between a working Vita versus a completely dead Vita, I'd rather have one that's limited to 8 gigs than one that's not working at all. But anyways, thank you ever so much for watching this little extra video. Hope you have yourself a good day, and as always, take care.